All right, Rex, in the spirit of my 6-year-old's parent-teacher conference this week at home in Nocatee, let's get into report cards for the European team. We're going to do this in alphabetical order, starting with the European team, followed by the Americans. So first up, Ludvig Aberg. What do you have?
I'm really uncomfortable with this because I was a really bad student and like bouncing ideas off you. I feel like I kind of graded a little bit on the high side. So I expect to get some eye rolls from you. Ludwig went 2-2-0, which isn't great considering how the Americans played, but he did get their only singles victory on Sunday. That somehow turned out to be important. If you'd asked me that on Saturday night, I would have rolled my eyes at that. I gave him a B+ simply because he is turning into or will evolve into one of those stars that we just talked about. He will become the Rory McIlroys or the Tommy Fleetwoods or the Justin Roses sooner rather than later. So he needs to do better than 2-2-0, but I went B+.
I went a little bit harsher. Then again, my brother's a professor. My mom was a 40-year teacher. My dad was a principal. So this sort of stuff comes very easily to me. I'm going C+ for Ludvig Aberg. He actually got carried by Matt Fitzpatrick in that Friday foursomes victory, was the Europeans' second weakest player throughout the week. Yes, he did earn the only full point in singles, but otherwise I think his performance was pretty pedestrian, particularly for a player who we thought in Rome 2 years ago was sort of the breakout star that failed to live up to that, at least to me, this week at Bethpage Black. Speaking of Ludvig Aberg, his partner, Matt Fitzpatrick. What do you have for him?
He went 2-1-1. I thought he had a solid week. I'm going to go with A- simply because he's such a good plug and play player. And we just talked about foursomes play. What he did in foursomes play specifically on Friday, that set the tone.
You went A-. Boy, I'm harsh again. I'm going with a B for Fitz. Again, he was lights out on that Friday morning to set the tone. Keep in mind, this is a player who entered the week 1-7, literally the all-time worst one-loss record for a player in the Ryder Cup. For him to do what he did, yes, he did cough up a big lead in singles that may have come back to bite him for the European side if things panned out a little bit differently over that final hour. Did not necessarily cost him. I'm going Matt Fitzpatrick with a B. I think that's probably more appropriate for him. Tommy Fleetwood, one of the best players on the golf course at Bethpage Black. I got a feeling where this one's going.
I mean, A+. I mean, how do you do anything else for him? I'm going to actually go A+. I think he got the award they give out a sportsmanship award for this simply because of what he means.
A sportsmanship award this week at Bethpage Black. We're gonna get to the fans later, but there was a sportsmanship award.
That doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think he has become such a staple on this team, and he's become almost like generational with what he's able to do here. And the best part about it is Ian Poulter created a career out of what he did at the Ryder Cup. I think Tommy Fleetwood is doing very, very similar things right now with the idea that not only is he doing it, but he's doing it in a way. We're going to talk a little bit about the crowd under those circumstances. And with that crowd and some of the things that were being said, the amount of class and the amount of poise that he showed, A+.
I'm going A. But if an A is like from a 93 to a 96, I'm giving Tommy Fleetwood like the 96 on the A range, like close to an A+, but not quite. You get me on that one. He was brilliant, Rex, from start to finish. The best player in terms of strokes gain data. The singles loss to Justin Thomas was a little bit surprising, but you have to give JT credit the way that he battled and hold that putt on the 18th hole to steal the full point. 4-1. Tommy Fleetwood A. Arrow is pointing up. It's great to see him really build on the confidence that he established with that Tour Championship and the FedEx Cup title. Can't wait to see what he does, Tommy Fleetwood, in 2026. How about his teammate Tyrrell Hatton, who went 3-0-1 this week at Bethpage Black?
Going undefeated is impressive. Doing what he's able to do next to Jon Rahm, again, a built-in pairing. I can't stress this enough, how important that is for a captain to go into this. Keegan Bradley thought he had some built-in pairings. He thought Russell Henley and Scotty Scheffler were going to be that built-in pairing. You look at historically, Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele were supposed to do that, but you really didn't get the production. So Hatton is the other side of that built-in pairing. So I don't think you can overstate how important he is. He also didn't lose. He went 3-0-1. Bigger thing is, we're going to talk a lot about the crowds. We've already talked a lot about the crowds. We know what a hothead he can be. Never got rattled. A.
I'm giving Tyrrell Hatton an A as well. So if Tommy Fleetwood was like on the 96 range of that A, I'm giving Tyrrell Hatton on the 93 range of that A. He certainly formed a formidable duo with Jon Rahm in foursomes, remained perfect. I thought he performed admirably as sort of the late fill-in, remember, for Victor Hovland, who in the Saturday four balls could not go. Hatton was the late substitute, ended up pitching in with Matt Fitzpatrick to earn a full point there. Ended up earning the winning point, not the point that retained the cup. That went to Shane Lowry. We saw the theatrics there. Tyrrell Hatton was the winning point for Europe to get across the line and get 14.5 points. I'm giving him an A as well. A great week. Looking forward to seeing what sort of potential rules changes are going to be made to accommodate the live players, because Tyrrell Hatton, John Rahm, those guys absolutely have to be on the European team moving forward. On the other end of the spectrum, Rasmus Hojgaard. Genetically, this team was identical to one in Rome. The only difference is they swapped out a Hoggard, Nikolai in 2023, Rasmus in 2025. What grade did you give him?
I have a tendency to be a little lenient when it comes to the Ryder Cup and rookies, simply because of the intensity. You have to work your way into it. I don't think anybody's prepared. Certainly coming to Bethpage, where we had never been before, and that crowd and what it was going to bring. Certainly there should be a bit of a scale or a bit of a curve when it comes to grading, but he did not win anything. He went 0-2-1. He was last in the entire field, not just on the European team, the entire field in strokes gained total. Gave him an F.
I mean, sorry, we just have to. He only got one and only shot in four balls, and he lost. And Luke Donald made the very difficult decision to sit him all day Saturday, either not wanting to see a repeat performance, or he just felt like he didn't necessarily give them the best chance to earn a really critical point at a critical time for the Europeans to mount what ended up being an insurmountable lead. Then on Sunday in singles, he lost to Ben Griffin when obviously the result was no longer in doubt anymore, but he was the worst player on the golf course statistically. Unfortunately, I have to give Rasmus an F in his first Ryder Cup.
Back to back, we did the same. That's something, right?
This is an interesting one. Victor Hovland. Technically, his record for the week was 1-1-1. What grade are you giving him?
Essentially had to WD from two matches, as you pointed out. He WD'd late in the four-ball match on Saturday afternoon, of course, didn't play on Sunday. Kind of wanted to give him an incomplete, but that felt like you picking a tie for these matches at the beginning of the week, which it turns out you were closer than
just actually, saying. Almost happened.
Well, because we were due. That was your argument. We were absolutely due. He was injured. I think he delivered when he needed to. I think he, again, was he is part of this sort of generational switch that we're seeing on this cup. Ludvig Aberg is in that mix with one of the two Hojgaards, whichever one qualifies for the team. If not, both of them are part of that mix. So expectations are very high. I ended up going with a B-, but because he didn't get those last two starts, it's kind of tough.
That's why I gave him an incomplete. Yes, I picked a tie at the beginning of the week, and then I gave him an incomplete. B-, though, does make a lot of sense, though, Rex. They lost on the Friday four balls with Bob MacIntyre. He tweaked his neck injury, though, that he surprisingly had been dealing with for the past 2 months. If you're wondering why Victor Hovland was unable to sustain the success that he showed at the U.S. Open and sort of build on that momentum, clearly it came down to the neck issue that he said he's been dealing with since the Travelers Championship. A bulging disc in his neck does not sound good. That is what an MRI confirmed. I gave him an incomplete, although a B-. If I was forced to give a grade, certainly seems right. I feel bad for Victor Hovland. I know how badly he wanted to get out there. Luke Donald said he was on the verge of tears when he announced that he wasn't going to be able to go on Sunday. Shane Lowry, what's your grade?
This is going to be a little bit of a stretch. Now, Shane essentially secured the cup. He got the half point. I mean, he got the point that secured 14 points, so made sure Europe retained the cup. The way he celebrated, I think, shows his heart, his soul when it comes to this team. He was 1-0-2, which is not a great record for a player of his caliber. However, having you and I both walked with Rory, especially on Saturday afternoon, when it seems like the crowds were at their worst. And I think if Shane were not, had he not been at Rory's side, I'm not quite sure Rory would have been able to finish that round. And I'm not trying to overstate this, but he really played the role of motivator, big brother, shouldering all the responsibility that he possibly could. I gave him an A, not only for what he did with his golf clubs, but what he was able to do with Rory.
I'm with you. I gave him an A as well. Played some of his most inspired golf in years alongside Rory McIlroy, protecting Rory, defending Rory, sticking up for himself, summoning the goods in really just a really hostile atmosphere supremely impressed. Walking with his caddy down the 18th hole, he said that he has an opportunity to do something that he'd never done in his career before, and do something that he argued could be potentially the greatest moment of his golf career on 18 at Bethpage Black in his singles match. What does he do? He pulls it off, hits an absolute laser inside 6 feet, makes the putt, goes ballistic, and again, has the half point that helped Europe retain the cup. I'm going with an A for Shane Lowry as well. How about Bob MacIntyre, who's making his second Ryder Cup appearance?
I'm probably going to give him a grade that his record doesn't justify here. He was 1-1-1, but I felt like as we watched throughout the course of the week, he hit so many quality shots when you needed to. It seems like Bob MacIntyre delivered when he had to under the most pressure. It seems that's the role he's going to take with his team. Certainly that's the role he's taken with his career over the course of this year, maybe last year as well. We have seen him evolve from a curious player coming from Europe that seems to have a lot of grit to what I would say is a world-class player that the next time we get to a major, Bob MacIntyre should be on our lineup as someone that we talk about. So this has more to do with sort of the flashes I think I saw from Bob than maybe his record indicates. I gave him a B-.
B- as well. I'll keep this one short. Clutch putting, really impressive. Have his singles match. I really like his all-around game. I'm expecting more from Bob MacIntyre in 2 years' time in Ireland. Rory McIlroy. I know it's going to be an A. Just how high of an A are you willing to go?
I just went with an A simply because sort of the threshold here. And to be clear, you and I have done this for a long time as writers for a magazine and for a website. You had to always give grades, and sort of the litmus test or the threshold that we always would put was the only way you get an A+ if you go undefeated. And Rory went 3-1-1. I guess I could push him over the top just based on style points. It was brutal for him all week long. His wife had to endure things that no one should ever hear. I'm not going to make excuses for the crowd. And maybe to a certain degree, and we talked a little bit about this on the podcast, he brought some of this on himself. But that's sort of the emotional type player he is. And the fact is, he still performed. I like an A.
I'm grading on a curve on this one. I gave Rory McIlroy an A+. He pounded the table 2 years ago, guaranteed a victory, backed it up with another stout performance. No one on property absorbed more abuse than Rory McIlroy and his loved ones, and he responded by being lights out. One of the moments of the entire tournament was on 16, told the fan to shut the F up. What does he do? Turns around and stuffs it to 3 feet. Although he ran out of steam against Scotty Scheffler, it did not end up costing the European Rory McIlroy A+. Job well done, backing up. Wanted the smoke, delivered it right back. John Rahm, what you got?
I think if you would have asked me on Saturday night, it would have been an A, simply because he had one loss. But I think what he means as a team player, as one of those rock players that Luke Donald can depend on. The loss on Sunday was a bit of a surprise because he knew what was going on. He was looking at the leaderboard, and a player of that quality, a player of that standard, you would think could deliver when Europe needed him the most. So I gave him a B+.
B+ for me as well. Reminded everyone, as you mentioned, of his greatness. He was tremendous on and around the greens. Looked Seve-like at times, and then got routed by Xander. Not ideal. Did not appear particularly happy about it either. Justin Rose, Sepp Straka are our last two. Real quick, what do you got?
I think Justin Rose deserves an A. And as you pointed out, like he seems to be sort of, I think he's called it the Indian summer of his career, but he seems to just keep getting better. And then the way he putted, he wasn't just the best putter this week. He was the best putter by multiples of strokes, just not on the European team, but for the entire field. And that's not always been his strength. He's, again, one of those Europeans that this brings out his best. A.
I gave him a B+. He combined with Tommy Fleetwood for 19 birdies in 4 balls, absolutely putting out of his mind. He lost to a red-hot Cam Young. Can't ding him too much for that. For the limited action we saw Justin Rose, super, super impressive. I gave Sepp Straka a C-. Another one graded on a curve. He's had some personal things going on at home. Very rusty with his iron play. Second worst on the team. Still got on the board with John Rahm in the 4 balls, lost in his singles. Sort of a mixed bag, not entirely unexpected. It was clear that he had other things on his mind, and I'm okay with that.
I gave him a C. He was the biggest unknown coming into this week, but you're right. A lot of things going on at home, and he was a rookie on this team.